And hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast, the only video game show. And today I'm joined by Glen Henry, and we're going to be talking about the upcoming game, Duppy Detective Tashia.
Hi,
Hello.
it's a pleasure to be here.
But before we do, we're going to be playing a round of everyone's favorite game. Before we get to the interview proper, we're gonna be playing a lovely game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dark Souls.
Yeah.
How it works is I'm going to name a thing, and you are going to guess if it is either a Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster or Dark Souls, because the monsters in
Okay.
both of those franchises are so ridiculous it can be legitimately tough to tell sometimes.
All right.
Alright, let's see. Let me just look at the many Yu-Gi-Oh cards I definitely don't have in front of me at any given time for any given reason. All right, we'll
Mhm.
start with Thousand Eyes Restrict, Yu-Gi-Oh or Dark Souls.
Okay. That one is definitely Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yep,
I remember this.
one of the most well-known fusion monsters from way back in the Duelist Kingdom days that looks like something that used to have skin but doesn't, and it is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, that's one. Let's see. Next is hmm. That's a weird enough name. Let's see. The Duke's Dear Freya, Yu-Gi-Oh or Dark Souls.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna go Dark Souls.
You are correct. It is from a boss from Dark Souls Numero 2.
Okay.
All right, and last but not least, let's see which one has weird name. All right, Hundred Eyes Dragon, Yu-Gi-Oh or Dark Souls.
Okay, this one is tricky. I'm going to say Dark Souls again, but it can be either one, really.
Yeah, you are incorrect. It is from Yu-Gi-Oh. And there we go. And now, without further me stalling, we can move on to the actual reason anyone would actually be clicking on this. So, Glenn, how about we start with you introducing yourself to my viewer?
Hi, everyone. Hi, all five of you. My name is Glen Henry. I'm an indie game dev based in Kingston, Jamaica. I've been making games in some form or fashion for a little bit over 10-ish years, like as an indie projects or stuff like that. Um, and yeah, and right now I'm working on Duppy Detective Tashia.
Okay, and when did you, Glenn, first get introduced to like video games just in general?
Ooh, very first video game? Probably Super Mario World 3 on the Super Nintendo.
Oh,
Um, yeah, me and my older brother would take turns trying to beat levels, and like every time we die, we pass up the controller.
okay. And what would you say is your favorite game and or games growing up?
Ooh, favorite game growing up. Hmm. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a lot of Mario, but like it's just such a mixed bag. So like some of my favorite memories are like playing Mortal Kombat and like Killer Instinct with like a bunch of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just rotate whose house we go to and play, and that would happen during the summer, and that was just like the most fun.
Okay. And what would you say is your favorite game and or games now?
Also, trick question. I don't know. I can't answer that one distinctly. I tend to get like hyper fixated on different games for different reasons. I tend to play games nowadays for looking for things that are like interesting, like if
Mm-hmm.
they're doing something interesting. But every now and again, there's something about a game that just hijacks my brain entirely. And currently, it's Marathon, and I think that is like 75% the aesthetic of the game. It just looks and feels cool.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Mhm.
So now we can move on to the real meat and taters. So, Glenn, if you were, like, say, at some manner of gaming convention right now, and Duppy Detective Tashia had a booth, what was the sort of pitch you would give, to any like passersby to get them interested?
Oh, wow. Passers by. You see, I didn't expect the question to go that way. I thought you were going to ask me for the elevator pitch, which
Oh,
normally
I mean
is
that too.
after. Yeah, that normally happens like after they've stopped. But like, mm, I think my distraction technique would be, do you know what a duppy is? And then people scratch their head and wonder what I meant by that, and then I'd use that distraction at that moment to just pull them over to the booth and then wax poetic about the game, which is a point and click murder mystery adventure game that uh, centers a bunch of characters from myth and legend, from Caribbean folklore.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the game itself is reinterpreting or modernizing a bunch of them in certain ways, and it's kind of just an excuse to lean pretty hard into what I feel does not get a lot of spotlight um, globally.
Okay. And I guess I'll just ask the question that like you like put forward. Like the title of the game is Duppy Detective Tashia. Now what does the word Duppy mean in the context of this game?
Mhm. Okay, so a duppy is really just like a colloquial name for like a spirit or a ghost.
Ah.
Depending on who you talk to, it has like a bunch of different applications. It's pretty flexible. Um, if you go to across the Caribbean, um, you might hear different variations, different stories, different ways of dealing with them. But traditionally, it is like when you this is like a folktale tradition, but when you die, in you there are two spirits. There's a heavenly spirit and an earthbound one. The heavenly spirit will go up to heaven. That part is normal. But if the proper rites are not taken, like that, we do a thing called 9 nights, which is kind of like a family celebration, remembrance of the person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you don't do that, that person can potentially become a duppy. The earthbound spirit can, go off and cause all manner of mischief and stuff like that. They're normally like shapeshifters and tricksters, and they can do all manner of things. They're not really hard limits. So I've basically taken that and kind of stretched it a bit to include a bunch of other characters that are also not super defined. So, like one of our more popular duppy is called the Rolling Calf, which is supposed to be a gigantic fire-breathing bull who just roams the countryside, attacking people. Um, but it can shapeshift as well, depending on the story, or it might have like poisonous breath or all manner of stuff like that. So yeah,
Okay.
and
I mean, that is much different than I thought it would be. I just based on the trailer, I like assumed that Duppy was like just a local term just to describe because like I'm going to just make a guess just based purely on the trailer and some of the screenshots on the Steam page that Tashia might not have it together all the time, and I assumed it was
Yeah.
someone who may or may not be a little bit of a disaster.
Oh no, no, no. Yeah, that's one of those things that I realize kind of gets like does not culturally translate super well.
Mm-hmm.
So I've tried my best to make it very obvious what it is. Outside of just the trailer, there's like a section on the Steam page where I plaster what a Duppy is. And when you start the game, the loading screen also plasters what a Duppy is. And then the first intro section for the demo also kind of plasters what a Duppy is. Because I realized that um, while like people from like the African diaspora and the Caribbean, they kind of already know what that is, or they have like direct references to a bunch of the characters. As we spread out from there, it's not as common. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I realize just the name itself sticks, but at the same time doesn't connect with everybody immediately. Yeah.
Okay, and so like, where did like the idea that eventually became the game come from? Like, what made you decide to like what was there any like one inspiration for this game, or is it just like a combination of things from like all over?
Um. So there are a bunch of combinations. Like the initial idea kind of came from me asking myself like what given the skills that I have um and the experiences I have, what are the stories or games that are uniquely mine that I can tell. um I kind of landed back on trying to find ways of exploring culture, my culture, in like more overt ways, while also trying to make it like more easily understood globally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was a start. So I was trying to think of like modern ghost stories that we would tell, and um, yeah, your grandparents would tell you sometimes, like when like during the hurricane or something like that, when light gone, they would tell you ghost stories over a little kerosene lamp. It was spooky, it was scary, stuff like that. So I was trying to think of what a modern version of that would be, and it basically that's what became Duppy Detective. The original premise was that the character got their phone stolen, but in addition to getting their phone stolen, they got their shadow stolen as well, which was supposed to be slightly spooky, slightly mysterious, on top of a while jarring, relatively mundane experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the original idea came from. In terms of direct inspiration, the look and feel kind of pulls a lot from like comic books. And there's a small comic book aesthetic there
Mm-hmm.
with the dot pattern and stuff. Um, Also drew inspiration from a couple other mystery games at the time, like Overboard was one. Slay the Spire in terms of like just narrative structure is another. And after like this protracted like prototype developing period, it kind of just landed on what is the best vehicle to kind of share this story, which is where the demo is right now, which is just kind of a point and click um, narrative experience with some light branching paths and um, the senses system where I'm empowering the player to kind of make connections by themselves. Yeah.
Okay, and see here that it's like a point and click game. Was the idea always to make it like a point and click style game, or at some point in the game was there a point in the game's development where you realized that that would like fit more with like what you're trying to design and the story you're trying to tell?
It was always going to be menu driven, and then that menu kind of just shifted over into point and click. Um, like another inspiration was like Citizen Sleepo. I had really liked the idea of like these inventory focused interaction systems, and I wanted to have something similar. Earlier concepts had that in place, but you know, over time, over working with the other people that I collaborated on the project, we kind of sand things down and fine tuned it to the direction it is at now.
Okay. And let's see. Now, would you say that was the character of Tashia, the titular Duppy Detective? Is she based off of like any person, or is it more just like an amalgam of like the sort of tropes you would find in like a both a mystery story and a supernatural story?
So I don't if if Tasha has any real life counterparts, it's almost probably subconscious or like accidental.
Mm.
Um, but like her first real like source of inspiration was like from anime actually. Like she was supposed to be a kind of like lean closer to like Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho.
Oh.
Right. Kind of brash, kind of loud. Um, that type of personality, and some of that does still kind of shine through in the current writing, but it's definitely less confrontational right now, mostly because the situations don't normally lean to that at the moment, at least.
Okay. And yeah, so like is like where like is where like the game is set, is it based on like a specific location like near you or where you lived and grew up in, or is it, what did you say, it's like an amalgamation of like a bunch of places to like fit the story you're trying to tell?
So like before Tasha gets sucked into the halfway market, the place itself is uh, actually called Halfway Tree. It's an actual place in Kingston. The opening shot is of our transport hub, which our transport center, the main one in the city, and so it's very visible and as a very visible reference to anybody who's experienced Jamaica. Um, so yeah, the market itself is kind of a mismatch. Um, the original idea or concept it was to kind of mimic some of the country markets that exist that we have here. Like you can go downtown and check with the farmers and get things, or you can go to where we would call, I guess, country or rural Jamaica, which is St. Elizabeth or Parish St. Elizabeth. There are places there as well where they set up their Sunday markets. People sell their vegetables, their fruits, that type of thing, and you go during the week and you buy what you need and such. I was trying to envision like what would a ghost version of that look like? What would that you know include? I'm thinking something closer to like a Studio Ghibli, but make it Jamaican. So make it reggae music and jerk seasoning kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay, and um from like I like provided everything goes as it should, like from idea to like finished product, how long do you imagine like the total like development time of Duppy Detective Tasha will have like taken?
So ideally, I do want to launch for this year. Um, the game itself was first announced in 2022, but development did not pick up until like um, 2024, 2025, and then it got interrupted a bunch of times. So I'm gonna say probably 2 years total of effort if it launches this year.
Okay. And yeah, just obviously without. I mean, obviously you don't want to give the game away when it's not even out yet, but like when all is set, like when a person, like after a person has like played through the game start to end and they see the credits roll, what is like ideal the sort of like feeling and impression you would like to for them to take away from it?
Um, so the core of Duppy Detective really and truthfully is um, comfort and nostalgia in a certain way. One of the reasons I'm really interested in finishing this project is that it's a form of like digital anthropology almost.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of the traditions and the stories and things like that, which were primarily oral, have kind of been slowly dying out in certain ways. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to connect with um, that shared history um, as easily. I'm hoping that the game itself like inspires people to go out and find out more about these stories, about these characters, about these myths, and you know, tell me where I took too much liberty with their interpretation and things like that. Um, but yeah, at its core, the game itself is an attempt at make a love letter to all the ghost stories I grew up with and the culture attached to that.
Okay. Now, is there an aspect of like the this game's development that you found to be like more challenging than you thought it would have been when you started?
Um, yes. Um, Making the good deduction games is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It is there is a way or an art to communicating information to the player to encourage them to make informed decisions without outright telling them. Um, and there's definitely a balancing act. Um, I think I've kind of landed it in the demo, but I know it's going to be a challenge to balance that straight throughout the full game. Um, yeah.
Okay, and is there an so just like as someone who is like not in who is not like a game developer and who does not really know a whole lot about that space,
Hmm?
is that would you like based on the you've not only being a developer but presumably interacting with like other game developers in their spaces, what would you like describe the indie dev like scene where you live compared to maybe in like other places?
So, in Jamaica, the scene itself is still pretty nascent.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly like students and hobbyists, and then a few smattering of people who are trying to do the whole entrepreneurial thing. Um, it is tricky because we definitely have like the technical and creative skill to kind of make some of these experiences, but there's like not a large amount of like institutional knowledge. There's not like established studios who are hiring full teams to, put out like even like triple I or little I styled games, right? Um, and because of that, there are a lot of assumptions that get made during production. There are a lot of ideas that people have that can only really be addressed through like firsthand experience. and that makes it hard to kind of build that into something investable and sustainable. Basically, as it is right now, everybody is experimenting madly, trying to draw inspiration from one another, and I think what's gonna happen is eventually, like, a hero will emerge. Somebody will pop up with something in, insanely unique and innovative. It's going to pick up and just fund the industry on the island. But we're still kind of in that ever stage of like rapid evolution and teaching each other and things like that. That is where we are.
Okay, and what sort of advice would you give to any like up and coming indie developers that you either got yourself when you started or that you wish you had gotten when you started?
I mean, the general advice is probably to start smaller. Um, but I'm probably gonna add like a little bit more to that. I'm gonna say, um, probably just finish your game. Like, shipping it is a muscle that only gets developed by actually putting something out with intent for people to play it. Um, it gut checks a bunch of your assumptions and it clarifies a bunch of things about your own creative process. If you keep making things and not putting it out there, yes, you can polish your skills, your technical skills, and polish your craft that way. But you never get your assumptions, your design assumptions challenged if you don't put that in front of a player. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I suppose that's as good a place as any to end it on. Before we start wrapping things up, Glenn, what sort of if where can the people like find any and all information about Duppy Detective Tasha if this sort of thing seems like their jam?
Well, Duppy Detective Tashia, you can wishlist it on Steam now. The demo is also available there. And if you want to follow me and just figure out what else that I am doing, you can find me at Sprite Wrench on pretty much every social media platform. Yeah.
Okay, you heard it here. If you want to be immersed in Jamaican culture, and if Jamaican culture plus supernatural stuff, which is, I mean, you add supernatural stuff to anything, and it sounds good. If that sounds like your jam, like Glenn said, Duppy Detective Tasha is available on Steam. You can wishlist it and download the demo, like I have done just like 2 minutes ago. And yeah, this looks like like for. I mean, point and clicks weren't dead, but they weren't like. But you know, for a while it seems like they were pushed to the wayside, and with this and so many others, they have been having a real renaissance, and let's hope that continues with this game. And if any of the five of my viewer have been watching this and enjoying, you can like and subscribe on the YouTubes. Follow me on the Blue Skies at Big Debbie. And yeah, if you like hearing slightly more coherent words, you can go onto your podcast platform of choice where I host Gotta Recap 'em All, a podcast where I and my co hosts are slowly watching and recapping the entirety of the Pokemon anime, which has been going on for so long. There was a time when I was as old as, everyone's favorite protagonist Ash was. But anyway, yes, like I said, Duppy Detective Tasha, wishlist it, download the demo, and yeah, keep an eye on it. And until next time, everyone, as I say at the end of every show, have a gourd day, everyone.
Gourd Day. That's great. That's great.